This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
And welcome once again to Nuff Said. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hello, Mozz. Welcome once again to Nuff Said, the Southgate Media and Capes and Lunatics, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Other Things Marvel podcast. Tonight's episode, Fear and Loathing on the Planet Kitson. Well, Fitz and Enoch try their luck at the casino. Daisy and Simmons find themselves in a much more exciting situation. Our director tonight is Jesse Bochco. I am wondering if he is related to Stephen Bochco, because that would make a lot of sense. Stan Lee and, of course, Jack Kirby get our Marvel credits. Joss Whedon, Jed Whedon, and Marissa Takarian, remember that name, get our created by credits. Brent Fletcher and Craig Titley get our written bys. Oh, James C. Oliver and Shariah Oliver are our executive story editors this week. Our hardest and truly hardest working person in show business, our story editor, who make James and Sharia be executives, is George, what's his name? Kitson. So he gets a little bit of immortality there, in that he named the planet of Fear and Loathing. No, we're not doing the Jones cast till that starts on the 14th. Oh! Okay, yes. Trish was...
So you're waiting for next season?
Yes, we're waiting for the next season that starts on the 14th for the Jones cast. Oh. Okay, so welcome, dear listeners, and welcome, Mozz, to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Season 6, Episode 3. And I just lost everything I had there. Okay. Fear and Loathing on the Planet of Kitson. Yes.
With that title, what that says to me is that these are just like the people that I was in high school drama club with, you know, that got to run their own show. Being the fact that they're not afraid to like call out their references so boldly as to call an episode Fear and Loathing on the Planet Kitson, and then to do, you know, the narration over the top like Johnny Depp was doing.
Yes.
I think so. So it's more sort of an exploration of people having fun with what kind of cool things they can do. So if you view the show from that perspective, you can have a little bit of fun, I think.
Well, to be fair, I think that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. always feels like they've got a gun pointed to their head. And I really feel, even though they have that like authorized 7th season now, so they're already like approved to do one more season, but I get the feeling that the writers are like, yeah, you know, whatever.
Yeah, let's just have some fun. Wouldn't
Let's
it be
have
cool?
some fun. And they certainly have fun with this episode.
They do indeed.
They do indeed. This is our space episode. They did say that we'd probably be mostly in space this episode, which gives time for stuff on Earth to have its own progression, because we have two parallel storylines: the Earth story and the space story.
A little bit.
And we do get Gemma getting called out. Gemma Simmons getting called out on sending them to this randomized planet that she thinks Fitz was going to. That, for what it's worth, she's right about. He was going there, but he's not there now. But of course,
Wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
Don't they end up there at the same casino though? Oh, but first they go to the other planet, right?
Yeah,
right.
First they go to the other planet, because we have a whole scene. Because we have this whole thing with the chronotons.
Right.
And the chronotons is in fact, when we first open up, we see a gentleman who we don't know yet is a chronoton going through various wanted posters. and
Right.
focuses in on the Fitz and Enoch poster. These guys are people to come and get,
Mhm.
and he goes to find them. Now, interestingly enough, he goes to the planet they were headed for, whose name I have forgotten, and which all people will forget from now on. Where they make
Aroaxia.
I'm sorry,
Aroaxia, I think.
Aeroaxia. Well, I'm going to take your word for it.
Narrow.
Yeah, that honestly, that sounds very, very likely to be the case. Uh,
On that one?
no, I don't
Yeah,
want
no,
to read
I was
it.
just playing it again, and I'm looking at it, and that's what it was.
Yes,
I'm Christopher.
you're Tristan. Just speak up. He's trying to offer me. He's offering me pickles.
Ah, right
Yeah,
on.
pickles are good. I like pickles. I'm not going to argue with pickles, but that's not what the story is about.
Yes, it is.
Uh,
It's our favorite superhero, Pickle Man.
yes, Pickle Rick. All hail Pickle Rick. Anyway, moving forward, we have Sky. Oh, I'm sorry, not Sky anymore. Daisy and the crew. After the whole confrontation about everything, where Emma's like, "Our mission is finding Fitz." It's like, yes, but now we can't go home and we'll die horribly. Confrontation. Of which Daisy's like, I don't want to put Emma in the brig, but Emma, you totally did a bad move. This
Yeah.
wasn't your call to make, and it's absolutely fair. Um, honestly, for plans that go wrong, I think this is a good episode for plans that go
Hmm.
wrong. They do meet the very Doctor Who like, well, not, I mean, as if you were a character in Doctor Who. There are a lot of, and I mentioned last episode that there's a lot of references to Doctor Who in this. Obviously, the people writing these shows are real big fans of Doctor Who because that whole bureaucratic, uh, the bureaucratic alien whose existence is based on bureaucracy, that is a
Yeah.
Doctor Who reference. That is like,
Well, I mean, and if even going further back, there's a whole race of these bureaucrat aliens in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
oh, of course, yeah. Well, that's not for nothing. That's where Doctor Who got it from. I mean,
Right.
you
Yeah.
never know which of the classic art forms, Hitchhikers, Doctor Who, or if you've seen the recent Terry Pratchett Good Omens, which is very good, I highly recommend it.
Interesting.
Series, the idea of non-human bureaucracy and bureaucracy elevated to a perspective of the cause of existence.
Hmm.
This is a common theme in uh, highbrow comedy, if you will. So they definitely have their moment here, especially when he's like, "You don't understand. You're in the system. Once you're in the system, I can't take you out of the system. We have to go through with this."
Right.
Which is a moment of its own. And it's my favorite moment in this is when the guy is running his entire spiel, and then they mention Leo, and then the guy says, "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that."
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
he's here, and he of course is referring to what we later find out is a chronoton, but at this moment we just think is some randomized bounty hunter. But it also shows that this guy, he is a bureaucrat, he is doing his job, but he's not going to help the chronoton if
Hmm.
people don't make it his job to help the chronoton. His
Hmm.
job is just, I'm doing my job. I'm going to run this inspection the way I would do any other ship. I'm not going to help or hinder you. And
Right.
I actually feel some sympathy for these people who don't understand what's going on.
It's just like, oh, don't bring me in this.
Well, exactly. He doesn't want to be in the middle of this nonsense.
Right.
Now, of course, the Chronoton didn't expect that, Daisy has superpowers.
Right.
Which, not for nothing, in this universe where there are people with superpowers, how is
Right.
that not a concern earlier in your approach to this?
Right. And it's not like you're on Earth and you're just learning about, special people. This
No.
is, the vast universe and all the galaxies in it. And they most likely have known about superpowered people or creatures that have regular powers to them. They're not just superpowers, but, varying degrees of capabilities, I guess, for a while.
Yeah, I mean, not for nothing. It's obvious that, this is people have laser eyes in this universe. As I say, people have laser eyes on Earth. But clearly they're a bit more common in this universe, though maybe not as common as we'd like to think. Maybe only the people with laser eyes visit other planets, and so we're inclined to think these people wouldn't have laser eyes. But at the same time, we know that Earth is starting to have laser eyes. He's a Chronoton. He would know that they're a culture observing humans. So laser eyes are a thing on that planet. And he probably should have took more precautions against the group of people from the clandestine military organization that is
Right.
searching for Fitz the anomaly.
Right.
But anyway, long story short. We do have this interaction with the Chronoton. They do subdue him because Daisy has her superpowers. And then, or possibly slightly before this, we go and check in on Fitz and Enoch. And we see that they are taken by the people that they're, because of course, to save the crew that they just saved, they are going to the planet of Kitson. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but, well, I mentioned it earlier, but Kitson is the name of our story editor.
Right.
Which makes me think that Kitson actually had more to do with this story than just being the editor, that they named the planet Kitson. I don't know. I don't know why that is, but
the producers or the writers a pretty significant favor, and in return they said, "Hey, I'll put your name in the show. You'll be immortal."
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's a big get. It's a big get for Kitson. He has a planet named after him. The planet where that which happens on Kitson burns and is contagious.
Right.
Which I think is one of the most beautiful lines I've ever heard in a situation like this.
No, it's awesome because you got Space Vegas named after you. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, exactly. And yeah, absolutely, it burns. And it is contagious, so be careful, kids. What happens on the planet of Kitson? It burns and it's contagious. Yeah. It burns your genitals. Well, presumably. We don't know. We don't know that it actually burns your genitals. We just know it may cause a burning sensation.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough, Tristan. Let's focus on the show. You were not the show. Ian Mozz was the show. Okay. Anyway, moving right along. We have Fitz and Enoch go to the planet, and they go into the casino and they make the statement, "Hey, no robots allowed." And Enoch is like, "Well, technically, I'm a Chronoton. We are way more advanced than robots." Which I thought was a fun fact. Although, to be fair, Enoch understands, I'm kind of cheating, and I know I'm that. Right. But I'm going to give the show this much credit. At no point does Fitz say, "I can count the cards. I'm a super genius. I can do this." He says, no, I'm going to rely on the computer I brought with me.
Right.
The computer, I can learn alien language in however many weeks we've done this. But, in a year, I can learn an entire alien language in a year. But I'm going to still rely on the supercomputer to make the judgment calls on this because he's the supercomputer.
Right. That's exactly why we built him.
Exactly. Well, we didn't build them, but yeah, whoever built them, built them,
No,
built them.
to have processing power. Any
Yes.
capacity of work that needs to be done needs processing power. And just like, the wattage of electricity running machines, it's that sort of processing power that runs everything in
Yes.
this modern world. So
And
in
I
that
do
sense.
like when he puts the one chip they had, which they got from the
Mm.
people who stole both their ship and their slugs. Give him a chip. Say, hey, fortunes are won and lost. Here you go. And of course he plays it and wins it. And it's like, well, I knew it was going to come up because it hasn't come up in so many cycles. Which
Right.
actually, not for nothing, just to
Mm.
be like clear on probability, that doesn't mean it's going to come up in the next spin. It just means that
Mm.
there's going to be
Yeah.
another spin, and it hasn't come up for a while. It should come up. That is literally what every gambler says. Hey, it's due. It hasn't come up.
Right.
So
Right.
that was a cheap way for him to have it happen. But they have to have that kind of miraculous play to show it.
I once lost, I think half of what I had spent 6 hours winning at the craps table at at the roulette table because we got 13 reds in a row. Can you believe it?
I can believe it. It's honestly, when it comes to red and black, it's literally 49-49. It's not quite 50-50 because there is a double
13
zero.
reds in a row? Come on, man. I mean, and then I had to walk my sorry butt back to the craps table and spend another couple hours winning it all back.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. I mean, when you go to a roulette and you bet red or black or odd or even, it is literally just short of a coin toss.
Right.
And you can get 100 heads in a row. It happens.
Right.
I mean that's the thing of that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, it's a good bet, and it loses half the time, and it wins half the time, and sometimes it will win a lot of the times when you keep on playing it, and it's just going to build itself up.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that when you're playing red or black, it's there's no guarantee it's going to come up in another spin. It is as random as a coin toss. In fact, as I said, it's a little less random than a coin toss because in a U.S. Roulette table, it has the double zeros. I think it has a single zero as well.
How interesting.
Which actually makes it no longer 50-50. Yeah. Because there are two other spots that are neither red nor black, neither odd nor even, that when you run it, it could come up one of those. That's why the house always wins. But anyway, we have that miraculous moment, and that's how we know. Oh, he can count cards. He can do computer magic to win gambling.
Right.
And they get involved in a poker game, or the space equivalent of poker, which of course requires bluffing, and of course Enoch gets bluffed. And then they decide to go into super blackjack, basically a combination of Russian roulette and blackjack, which is just a brilliant idea if killing people were a legal thing you could gamble on. In the idea that it's brilliant in the idea that if you wanted to conceive of a game in which people died, but that anyone could play.
Right. It's sort of like, like so predatory because there's that guy who just gambled away his mortgage or God forbid, the deed to his house. And now he has nothing left to gamble with. But if he's willing to put his life on the line, he has one last shot. So it's kind of like a more honorable way to commit suicide after losing everything.
Yeah, although presumably there's even a secondary, which is you get sold into slavery, which is because they make the point. It's like they assess, Fitz's fitness. Say, well, you're not pretty strong, but you got a good brain. We know we can sell that brain on the black market. So, or not even a black market in this world. It's like, wait,
right.
Your brain, that kind of brain, that's going for 88 cents a pound in whatever land. But yeah, it's clearly a saleable commodity in this world. And of course, that is what they're doing. And of course, Enoch is counting the cards for him, so he tells him to hit or to stay. And that's what's going on in that storyline. Meanwhile, we have after our shield agents have gotten caught up with the ship they were on. They meet the people who had basically stolen everything from Fitz and Enoch, and go to basically interrogate them. They find out where they are. But then they make the mistake that Enoch cautioned Fitz against, which is having a puff on an empty stomach.
Mm.
And that leads to the comedy of tonight's episode.
But they handle it reasonably well for the kind of show it is, you know?
Yeah. I gotta say, it's one of these moments, I've not done a lot of hallucinogens in my day. In fact, and I'll say this, as I'm watching this, there are parts of me that say, oh, that is totally what would happen. And parts of me that saying, I think that's a little much. But when they walk into the hallway.
Yes.
And it's like all the wah, 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 and all the lights. And then we actually see what reality is. And it's just lighted hallway.
Yeah.
Part of me is
in that moment, the slightest things, you can find the beauty in the tiniest little spaces of reality. And those little, tiny, beautiful spaces take on such significance. And it's sort of like a metaphorical way of presenting that to you. Like your brain is going, wow, at just like a little bunch of lights, you know?
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I gotta say, you gotta have a lot of respect for the people in this casino. This is a casino full of awful human beings. But here are these two admittedly attractive Terrans wandering around, clearly stoned out of their gourds.
But at the same time, it's like they're in the midst of several different species. So like not every species is going to be attracted to them. So
this
it's sort of like, so they have that little bit of anonymity that they're not the instant point of attention to any bar that they walk in. Yes, some of the people that have humanoid forms, I guess, they'll be attracted, but it sort of affords them a little bit more anonymity, I think.
Yeah, and to be fair, it is just them sort of wandering through this. What I have to say is what's most amazing is obviously the bartender doesn't charge them for their drinks.
And the bouncer was super nice to them.
Yeah, they're all real nice. It's like we get people that are wound up on puffs, and to be fair, it's like this is like this kind of weird spot for me in this whole episode, is because when the Chronotons do show up, and the fight ensues, there aren't any bouncers.
There aren't any what?
Any bouncers.
Ah. Yeah, did they just, like, walk out? That's interesting.
Well, exactly. It's literally like they go into the casino, the Chronotons start shooting up the place, the customers leave, Fitz and Simmons get into their fight, and not Fitz and Simmons, Simmons and Chloe get into their fight, or Daisy get into their fight, and, the fight goes on, but at no point are a bunch of bouncers coming in to break it up. I think they're all like, you know what? We got the customers out. You two solve this problem.
Hey, don't put me in this.
Exactly. It's like, let them go, because however it goes, it's going to go. And then we're going to arrest whoever the heck is done at the end.
Right. I'm sure at a place like this sort of thing happens often enough that that's probably the prescribed course of action.
Well, that is possibly it, but it also got me thinking. We are talking about this question of the snap. And it gets me thinking about the idea of staffing in this universe. If certain people, basically, if half of the universe has disappeared, suddenly you have this real problem with staffing. And so suddenly, whether or not you can get enough bouncers to cover your casino is a real question.
Second snap?
No, this is the first snap. This is still 1 year later.
1 year after the first snap, so it's before the second snap. Gotcha.
Exactly. So this takes place after the first snap, after the Avengers failed to get people back from Thanos.
So they're still having staffing issues. Gotcha.
Exactly. This is before. This is before the Rat saves the day with Scott Lang bringing him back from the quantum zone.
Right. Or 4 years before that.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, so it strikes me, if you imagine that this is a half-staffed universe, a
Mm.
lot of stuff that normally might make you go, oh, what's going on, it actually makes a bit more sense.
I like that.
Because suddenly there aren't people coming in and out of stores all the time. There's suddenly, everything is kind of spread out a lot more. And everyone has to deal with the fact that, yeah, there are less people here. So, and not for nothing, I guess the room is soundproofed, or as we said, that, when the guy comes in and starts shooting up the place, they let them shoot.
Mm.
Because honestly, everyone that knows to get out of the room got out of the room. No one is going to be a hero in a world in which half the people just disappeared.
Mm.
So everyone's
And I don't think that anyone in this bar considers any other person in this bar worth saving.
exactly, unless you know him personally, and no one here knows him
Right,
personally.
right, right.
Even the guy that was going to take Chloe back to his ship, he was like,
Hmm.
I may be a guy that would date rape you, but I am not a guy that would die to date rape you. So,
Right.
uh, awful people in the universe. But
Right, right.
and meanwhile, of course, Fitz has realized that there are aliens with 95% sulfur blood, which will
Right.
he can create plastic explosives out of somehow.
That's probably why the guy was completely useless.
Yeah.
Like, we're not letting this guy near anything,
Well, you know what? For what it's worth, the guy certainly proved
Well, I mean,
useful
if
to
it gets
Fitz.
hot or if he overheats, mining that ore, he might just explode. His
Well,
blood is sulfur.
one imagines that the species has a regulatory system.
Fair
And,
enough.
not everyone has to go and be an ore miner. As Enoch pointed out, we could always go to the brothels.
Hmm.
We're physically capable beings. We can go to the brothels. I'm sure that guy would have been fine at the brothels, doing whatever it is at the brothel he would need to do.
Yeah.
Who knows what his species is structured like? And for other species, that might be a thing. So, but he does become a useful weapon in creating the the plastic to blow themselves out. And actually, also, I like the fact that Enoch has his existential crisis here.
I loved that part. It was a great little data moment,
Well,
After he
yeah.
loses purpose, what does it even mean? Why do I even bother? That was kind of nice for him to reach those depths and find something to pull him out of that.
Well, yeah, and of course, what pulls him out of that is actual friendship, which
Yeah.
is kind of the point. Is that when he first says, "Oh, we should be friends. We are friends," Fitz is actually a little dismissive of the idea. But when it actually comes down to it, when Enoch actually becomes disabled, Fitz is like, "No, actually, I do need you, and I really am bound to you." You know, you're
Well, I
kind of
mean, that's one way of looking at it. The other way is all of a sudden now when he needs him, he employs the friend card. Whereas when it was offered to him in good times, he couldn't be bothered by it. He's like, oh, what is this nuisance? Somebody trying to be my friend? And now when it's like, oh no, if I don't get Enoch to help me, I'm going to die and maybe never see Gemma again.
well,
So,
I
hey,
mean,
buddy, want to
so
be buddies? I'll be your buddy.
so there are two ways to look at this.
Right.
I'm gonna be noble or assume
Yeah.
nobility in Fitz in this, and
Yeah.
you're right to assume a lack thereof. But to
It's just
me,
his butt. Enoch deserved better.
it's that Enoch and that well, certainly he did not necessarily think that Enoch
Hmm.
was his friend up until that point. I think he felt that by the time they get to it, that yes, absolutely Enoch is his friend. That they're actually at a point where where he realizes that this person, even though there's many reasons why it's sort of like when you think about Big Bang Theory and you think about a character like Sheldon, and why is anyone Sheldon's friend?
Right.
And the reality is, they're Sheldon's friend because he's not a bad person. He's actually a very good person. In fact, a
Mm,
better person than most when you actually really break it down to numbers. Um, and
sure
this is
enough.
a person who stood by Fitz throughout all of this nonsense when he didn't have to.
Mm.
And Fitz realizes that, you know what, you are my friend. And I guarantee you Fitz would go to the end of the earth to help Enoch. And we may get that before the
Right.
end of the
But I mean,
series.
that's also his modus operandi. He helped people that were his captors at one point, you know?
Well,
So of course he
true,
would help
true.
something that helped him.
Yeah, but at that point, it wasn't about friendship. And at that point, and for
Right.
what it's worth, he turned on those people
Just about
when,
his duty to human life or any life.
well, I think he's shown a great deal of duty to human life, as he
Right.
points out. He
Certainly.
didn't save the people on the ship just so they
Right.
could be killed as mutineers. You know,
Right.
he saved them
Right.
so they could live a life. And more to the point, he didn't even really want to save them. It's just that he didn't want them to die a horrible death at the hands of a mad dictator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's that story. Uh, moving along.
And then I
So,
guess we get that last scene where Sarge shows up with that weird gun that projects a grid of like these little, I don't know what you'd call them, little beams of light
was that this episode
in
or was
the
that
air.
last episode or the episode before this?
That's at the end of this episode.
That's at the end of this episode. Okay,
Yeah.
so after we get a whole thing, and there's a whole thing about subsonics and you're not communicating with them, and that's how Gemma knows
Right.
he's communicating with, and that leads her to her telling the bouncer, the one bouncer on duty who's guarding the door to make sure Fitz doesn't get out, that the dolphins told her that, which is a great Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference.
Hmm.
The,
Hmm.
the dolphins told her that everyone that Fitz was in there and that's her husband, yada yada, and he's just like, lady, lay off the puffs and don't get the explosion. And then Fitz and I think Fitz and Enoch both disappear when the chronoton comes.
Yeah.
Although
He sort
Enoch,
of whisks them away in his little
yeah,
frisbee teleporter.
which honestly, I don't know where they're going next, but with Simmons so strung out at that point, actually I think Enoch comes out after that, so he takes
Yeah.
Fitz, so Enoch is still there. So I think that's going to be their tie back to go to the next storyline. But
Yeah.
then we get to the world, and Sarge in our after credit scene puts up the spectrum of lights of all of the somethings that they're looking for.
Well, according to the little map on his iPad thing, it looked like it was over the entire U.S., if not the North American continent.
Well, yeah, and that is what we will get to next episode when we talk about it.
Right on.
Mozz, any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Fear and Loathing on the Planet of Kitson?
No, it's sort of, to me, an episode emblematic of their approach to telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, they tell you how to interpret their world and or which vernacular to use when viewing the world that they're building. So it allows me to take a step back and see what sort of fun little things that they do. So I'm enjoying it.
Yes. I'm inclined to agree. It was a very fun story. I really enjoyed this episode. And I look forward to talking about the next one, Code Yellow, when we join all of you people back here next week or possibly sooner because we're doing a contracted run right now. In the meantime, Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, you can always find me in that old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Paz once said, at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I actually did this week, and Cloak and Daggers, which I also did this week, at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieESSER. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us once again here on the Nuff Said universe. Join us next week. And until then, we'll just say, Nuff Said.